Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited to have you guys here to learn how to approach finding a business profession or how to approach making money according to the Torah. So in the Torah, in the oral tradition, it says in the Gemara Pesachim, there's a famous discussion where it's discussed what is a profitable and what is not a profitable venture. And to save just for the sake of time, I'm just going to get to the points where it says that ultimately, oftentimes, the common mistake people make, it says businesses that do not have blessing are those businesses that are very time-consuming and yield a small profit. And Rashi says what is profitable or what is a good enterprise is buying and selling mills. And back in the day, mills were a source of sustenance, so we could think of mills as businesses. Some could also say it's a product, but for the sake of our discussion today, I want to talk about businesses. I want to talk about the concept of business brokering and how to approach it based on a Torah perspective and a secular perspective, so that way, if you follow this proven formula, which is a formula that I know a broker who I interviewed and do business with, he makes over $100,000 a month doing this system that he created. And once you have a system that works, all you have to do is model that system. So if you want to learn how to make $100,000 a month, and again, you could make more, you could make less, it really depends on you, and your personality, and hopefully, even if you don't have sales skills, you can develop sales skills. It's just part of practice. And it's not really about sales. It's really about finding good deals. And when you have good deals, then it's easy to find buyers. Does that make sense? Right? If you have a really good product and the product, if you showed it to people, would be really in demand, you have to find the right way to show it to them. So the key is to first create a good product. And that's the first thing I want to talk to you guys about. I want to talk to you about how to create or how to find a good product when it comes to selling businesses. Now, the beauty about selling businesses, you don't even need a degree, you don't need a license, you can have zero previous experience. With real estate, you need a license for sure. With business, you can market yourself as a consultant. And the way you do is you work on a success fee. And so how that works is that you basically go to a business and say, hey, I'll sell your business only if I find you the right person, right? Now, the key is like this. How do you find businesses that you can sell quick, right? How do you find a business you can flip in a week or 2 weeks, right? So you basically, you have to find, wherever you live, doesn't matter where you live in the United States or in the world, you find your concentric circle. You find your 10-mile radius, and all the businesses in that radius, right? There's many, many businesses, but you find the business, you basically business locally, so that way when you show people, you don't have to drive so far, right? Okay, so then you get a list. You can either buy a list, or you can just call the businesses directly, and you call the owners, and you say, hey, I have buyers, do you want to sell your business? And there's 3 answers they can give you. No, yes, or I'm looking for another business. So no, you move on, great. And if you yes, perfect, you have a seller. Or he might say, I'm looking for another business, now you have another buyer. See what I'm saying? Now you're always dealing with buyers and sellers. You're basically just the liaison between the buyers and sellers. And we're going to talk about how to find buyers, but the key, as we discussed earlier, is to find a good product, right? And the good product comes through motivated sellers, right? A motivated seller is a seller who has a good business. It's already making money, right? It's like a pizza shop, a deli, a car wash, just small businesses that people need, liquor stores, laundromats. And you basically find sellers who are motivated. Different sellers need to sell for different reasons. Sometimes they want money, they want to move on. There's a million type of reasons a seller will sell. But the key is to find motivated sellers, because if they're motivated to sell, then you're going to be able to actually move the property, right? If they're not motivated and they're waiting around, then they're basically, you're going to be going back and forth. You might not be able to close the deal because the seller's going to be like, oh, think about it, maybe I can get a better deal. You can go in circles. You see what I'm saying? The key in this is to get really focused and not waste time and really zoom in on what works and not try and do things that don't work. And if you focus and zoom in on what works, then you could create that momentum. And once you have momentum, you're closing deals on a monthly basis. You know what I mean? You'll be going, you follow what I'm saying? The hardest part is to close the first deal. Once you close the first deal, then you understand how it works. And then it's about creating a system, automating that process. And we could discuss how to make lists of buyers and sellers and just creating that momentum where you can even get it to a certain point where you can do even less and less work and actually make more money, right? So the idea here is that how do you find a motivated seller? The business has got to be good, and he needs to have a good reason for selling it. Like sometimes, unfortunately, like someone passes away, or their wife wants to move to a different state, and then they have to sell their business because, let's say, they live in New York and the wife wants to move to California now, which is probably a better place to live anyway. But basically, the idea is the seller's motivated for a legit reason, and then basically, so now you have a qualified seller. Okay, so to qualify again, the qualified seller has to be motivated. To sell, and he has to fall into the structure of the sale. So here's the idea is like this. See, when you advertise to buyers, a good deal typically is a value deal where you're getting a discount, right? So you want to be able to advertise a deal to seller to future buyers in a way that whatever the income is for 1 year, that first they can get in the business for 75% of that. So for example, if the place it's a car wash, for example, right, makes $150K a year, you want to basically say, okay, I want to be able to have the down payment to be, let's say, like $100,000, right? So that way, if someone puts in $100,000 the first year, they're going to make that $50K profit right away. You see what I'm saying? And then you structure the deal depending on how much they want for the car wash. That whatever that down payment is, the rest of that money. So let's say they want to sell the car wash for $500,000, right? So they're the $150,000. $100,000 you're paying up front, right? And that $400,000 you're going to pay over a 20-year period with a 3 to 5 year balloon. So you put an amortization on it for 20 years at like 5 or 6%. What that means is they're paying. And that $400,000 as if it's like a loan for 20 years. And then a balloon means that after that period of time, let's say 3 to 5 years, where you're paying just the interest, then the buyer can make more money on the business at that time. Does that make sense? So then afterwards, when the buyer's made enough money, then he can pay the seller back the full amount in 3 to 5 years, right? But the buyer's able to get in at a deal where he's able to make money in the first year. And that's an enticing deal to most buyers. Does that make sense? That's the secret sauce formula right there. Right? That's the secret sauce formula. So we'll call it secret sauce formula. And all that means is that a potential buyer can get in at a favorable rate. See what I'm saying? When you can get in at a favorable rate on that first deal, which is, again, we'll say typically it's 75% of net profit. Does that make sense? 75% of net profit? Right, this is the down payment. See what I'm saying? That's the deal, right? So now, when you present this to a future seller, what happens is you find out how serious the seller is, right? Sometimes the guy says, "Oh, no way," or maybe, depending on how you answer if you want to weed people out. So let's say your 10-mile concentric circle, let's say that's 500 businesses, right? You want to weed out all the nonsense, which is usually 80% of it. At any one time, 20% of the business is really what's going on. It's just a principle. It's called the 80-20 principle. But basically, that 20% of the business, that's what you want to try and locate and zoom in on. Those people are motivated. And the other people come around later when they're ready to sell their businesses, if they're ready to sell their business. But if they're not ready to sell their businesses, don't waste your time. No is a really good answer. In this business, no is a really, really good answer. Because you don't want to waste your time. Yes, yes, no, no. Now, sometimes you can facilitate deals, but the premise of things is that you could basically the premise of things is that you could basically you can get to it's based on the numbers at the end of the day. You know what I mean? If the numbers make sense, and it just makes sense, it's all based on the numbers. And a lot of people are looking to buy businesses because they need income. It's one of the fastest, best ways to get a healthy, normal, like 100K salary of some sort, right? So this is the key to part one. So this is how you find the right seller, right? Once you find him, he's motivated and he's willing to do some kind of down payment, and he knows the price that he wants to sell it at, right? So now you've got a really solid, qualified seller. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now once you have the seller, you know, and you have an idea of presented him what is it going to be, how the deal is going to look like approximately. You use this right here. Use that right there as the way to advertise to buyers through Craigslist or 7 other websites online. bizbuysell.com. There's like 7 other websites where you can just advertise businesses there. Okay. Now, before you advertise to buyers, you have to do one really important thing. You have to make a deal with the seller. You have to make a contract with the seller, right? So with the seller, you need to go make a contract with him for an open listing or a 1-year listing. An open listing. An open listing says basically, hey, only if I find a buyer for you, then you pay me a commission, right? It's usually a 10% commission. Now, and that means if someone else brings you a person to buy the business, and I don't get anything. Or if you find the person, I don't get anything, right? And most deals are like this, right? That's why it's really important to have a contract with the seller, because actually approximately 1 in 5 sellers don't want to pay the commission. Sometimes you don't want to take people to court; it's a big headache. So you want to try and really be upfront and weed out bad potential sellers also. And no is a really good answer here, because there's plenty of businesses. There's no lack of businesses that want to be sold. So once you have this open listing with a good seller, and you've basically identified that the seller really understands that he's going to pay you a commission, you're very upfront about everything, you're very clear about everything. So then, you can basically continue on and finding a buyer, which we'll talk about in a second. Another thing you could do is create a 1-year listing where you try and be exclusive for a year, right? That however the business comes in, you try and be exclusive. That's preferable to you, but oftentimes it doesn't really matter that much, because the marketing channel is kind of, once you advertise the right way, it changes everything. Most people don't know how to advertise. Like the secret sauce of this formula is that you're finding the right seller, but you're also advertising the right way. Okay, and I'm going to tell you how the secret sauce of the advertising is. Okay, you want to pause the video?